Hi guys, welcome back to the Shannon Show. Hello if you're new. So today's video is going to be a review of Miss America, which is obviously Taylor Swift's documentary that just dropped on Netflix today. So before watching the documentary, in terms of what I thought it was going to be, obviously I thought we were probably going to see the day of the life. They're probably going to address some of the key moments in Taylor's career, maybe some of the controversies that Taylor Swift has been involved in. That's what I kind of knew that was going to be in the documentary. My thing that I was most interested in was how it was going to be portrayed, how Taylor Swift was going to portray herself or be portrayed. Before it came out, we weren't really sure how much involvement Taylor Swift was going to have in the documentary. She's not actually credited as a director. Lana Wilson is. So that was the main thing that I was interested in. So in terms of what the documentary looks like, it is sort of a day in their life. It's not really fly on the wall. It is more of a kind of sit down vibe with Taylor. As you can suspect, Taylor is very heavily involved in the documentary. We see a lot of her talking to the camera and we hear a lot of her in the voiceover. And the narrative is pretty much Taylor's autobiography through Taylor's eyes. She started her singing career very young. She says, in the beginning she just lived for the praise and that was good enough for her, and obviously she was just living her dream, and every milestone was a dream, getting to perform, getting signed, getting these awards, getting on the Billboard charts, being number one. We see a lot of archive footage, old videos we see of her in her childhood, and it kind of paints a picture of, this American sweetheart who is very innocent, loves to sing, and is just living her dream. Everything is going perfect until the Kanye West MTV Awards situation. Obviously that iconic moment. The way that she kind of presents it as that was a turning point in her life and in her career. She was this country singer from a small town. She's come out to Hollywood to accept this award. This is like her first award. This is her first major award in the mainstream outside of the country circuit. Obviously Kanye was a big dog in Hollywood and on the music scene, comes on stage, steals your moment and humiliates you. And she was saying at the time, obviously people were booing at Kanye, but she didn't know that they were booing at Kanye. She thought they were booing at her, and she just felt humiliated. And after that, she said that there was some psychological issues that she went through. She was quite vague with that, but she basically says that she felt like she was made to feel like she didn't belong in Hollywood, and she set about trying to prove herself. And I think that is possibly true, because I feel like obviously her first albums, they were still a bit poppy, but it still had the core country element. I'm not sure if it was directly after the Kanye situation, but her music style definitely had a turning point at one point where it was less country and more pop. So maybe that's what she did in order to kind of prove herself, or what she thought that she had to do to be a big gun in the mainstream. Because obviously once you go mainstream, you have more money, so you get more of the awards and you have more respect. That narrative is not really fast. I can already assume that people who might not like Taylor might feel that she is trying to manipulate that to garner sympathy. But from what I can kind of see from her career and the changes in her career and her music style, I think that this is true. Of course, after that, Taylor Swift blew up. Like, she was everywhere. You heard her songs everywhere. It wasn't, little arena shows anymore. It was stadiums. And then, of course, the last hiccup that happened was, involving Kanye again, and the whole Kim situation. Obviously they addressed that in terms of the narrative focusing solely on her career. Another turning point in her career, I feel like everybody knows that whole situation. I feel like, it definitely affected her career. Obviously the whole situation with the whole famous Kanye West thing. I can still remember it like it was yesterday. In terms of where I stood on Kanye West and Kim K's side, because I even now I still feel like if you had agreed to everything else, I don't understand why the bitch thing would bother you so much. I can understand why she was upset. Obviously, she's entitled to her feelings, but I feel like she definitely blew it out of proportion, in my opinion. But the way that people came for her, obviously, I said my shit. I don't think I used the hashtag, and I definitely didn't at her. But, you know, I think it definitely puts it into perspective that, you know, when the mob comes for somebody on the internet, there is someone on the other side. And even though I still stand by what I said all those years ago, I did sympathise with her. It probably is not nice when literally it seems like the whole of Twitter is coming for you. Literally the number one trending thing is that, you know, your career is over. And the whole, you know, Taylor Swift is over party and stuff like that. That was kind of like the first things, because obviously now you kind of see it like every week when somebody says something, you know, this person's over party. But I feel like this was the first, this celebrity, this known person is over party, you know, in Twitter history. I can definitely sympathise for her, and I feel like her hiatus was the best thing that she could do. I probably wouldn't have said anything. If I really had an issue with it, I would have spoken to Kanye in private. I don't think it was a smart decision for her. Even if she really felt so strongly about it, I don't think she should have went out with it publicly over something that I think was relatively minute. But yeah, obviously she took hiatus, and I feel like that was probably the best thing for her. But obviously in that time she was just saying how she thought that her career was over. She felt like nobody was there for her, and it was just such a bad time for her. But then obviously she used that to make her Reputation album. Obviously she made her comeback, and you know, her career is now back on track. So that was kind of the narrative for her career. The documentary also covers other parts in terms of the effects of her career, the effects of her being famous. It talks about her body image. She says, you know, she has had eating disorders, and that, you know, paparazzi and, you know, comments from the press and these media bloggers, you know, a lot of them always comment on how people look, whether it's their skin or their body weight, their body shape, and, you know, how all of these things affected her. And it got to the point where she would just not eat because she wanted to be this skinny person, because she'd rather be skinny with a flat stomach and have no energy than, you know, a normal weight with, you know, a stomach. You see a lot of that pressure, and like obviously they included a lot of shots of her where she just clearly looked very skinny. Her eyes were very big, and, you know, she looked like someone who was not eating. And, you know, she says how, you know, she doesn't really scrutinize herself anymore. She doesn't really go looking for paparazzi pictures like she used to, because the feelings that they conjure up, and how she's happy at the size she's at now, at her natural kind of size. I feel like this was a real moment for Taylor. I respect her honesty. Obviously, this is a thing we hear time and time and again, but I always think it's good when people hear it. She kind of presents the footage of people being critical of her look, but doesn't comment on them. And I feel like that is a good way her telling the media off, using their footage against them. It's a thing that is spoken about time and time and again, and people have different views on it. People say, you know, you should be able to talk about people's body, and if you don't like it, it's because you have low self-esteem. I don't think it's right. I don't think it's right when people scrutinize people's bodies. I think it is exceptionally bad when that is their natural body. But what do you guys think on the whole body image? Do you feel like people are too critical of people's bodies, and that perhaps people should just keep them to themselves? Or do you feel like people should just have a lot more self-esteem and not worry about what other people are thinking? Where do you kind of stand on that argument? And then, of course, she also touches on her sexual assault case. Obviously, some DJ, I don't know what his name was, there's a picture of him in the documentary, groped her when she came to take a picture with him and his wife, I think. And, you know, she told his boss, he got fired, and then he tried to sue her for millions of dollars. And obviously, she had to go to court, and she countersued him for a symbolic $1, and she won the suit. And she talks about, you know, how the case made her feel, how, you know, she was put on the stand, and how his lawyer was accusing her of being a liar. And she just said that, you know, obviously she's glad that it's over with, but she said it was a horrible experience that she had to go through. Again, this was another moment where I feel like it was needed. I'm always here for people talking about sexual assault. I just feel like it is actually mad, the entitlement of this guy. I feel like for him to take her to court, he didn't think that he did anything wrong. And, you know, I talked about it in my kind of sex education Netflix review, because they kind of tackle the same thing. And I feel like a lot of people feel like, you know, groping, touching people's bums, rubbing people's bums is very low level, and probably don't even think of it as sexual assault. And then on top of that, Taylor Swift was just going to let it go with the firing. She was just going to let that go. She was ready to move on with her life. And even then, being fired from your job is again better than jail. So then on top of that, you are now upset that you have been punished for a horrific action, and now you're blaming your victim. There was a lot of victim blaming, like, how dare you not allow me to touch you? How dare you think that you can fire me for touching you? Him taking her to court for millions of dollars was definitely him punishing her. If he did think that he did wrong, he probably thought that it wasn't that serious for him to lose his job, and he doesn't view himself as a sexual assaulter. He doesn't view himself as a monster. And we see this time and again with predators punishing their victims for speaking out. But Taylor Swift is good for just $1, because I would have taken him for everything that he had. I think some people have this thing where they don't want, you know, blood money, they don't want their people's money. And I guess he still probably had to pay Taylor Swift's fees, which probably were a bit hefty. But I personally would have bankrupted him, and if I didn't want his money, I would have donated it to charity, but I still would have bankrupted him. It's very mad, that whole situation. And what's even more mad is that they had picture evidence of him doing it. So it wasn't even a thing where it was her word against his. Of course, it addresses her activism. Obviously, this is the first, you know, the last year or so, this was like the first time that Taylor Swift had made it known what her political views were. And obviously it was a big deal, because obviously as country singers, or people who've made their route in country singing, notoriously you are told, keep your mouth on. The Dixie Chicks, they piped up about politics with the whole Bush-Iraq era, and people came for them, and basically their careers were finished basically after that. That's why she kind of decided to keep her views to herself, you know, because of money, to be honest, and career security. How the narrative is that, you know, she just couldn't keep it in any longer, and she felt really bad. She felt like a hypocrite for, you know, saying, you know, supporting Pride Month, but then keeping quiet about her political views. Before she came out with her political views, I thought that she was a Republican, typical Southern Republican. That's what I thought she was, especially after that whole Black Lives Matter thing, hashtag. Obviously she talks with her team, and the team is just like, they're scared, like they're just thinking she shouldn't do it, she's going to lose so many fans. Obviously they're thinking, you know, if she's going to lose fans, she's going to lose money. And then after that they tried the whole security thing, like, you know, it's going to be, people are going to come for you, it's not going to be a safe thing to do. But she's adamant that she wants to do this, so she does it. And, you know, obviously some people, you know, tell her, you know, she should just be quiet. I don't know why she's come out with this. There is a lot of support for her, and, you know, it does make an impact. People start registering to vote. Unfortunately, the person who she didn't want to gain a seat in Tennessee won anyway. But of course, she's quite optimistic for the future. Again, you know, I can respect that she's now being more forward with her political views. It's definitely about time. But I feel like the documentary skirted over the fact that her not speaking about politics was from a very privileged place. She's a cis-het, white, wealthy woman. Regardless of who is in office, she's always going to be good. So her keeping her political views to herself is selfish. When she knows that she has influence, especially when they are a progressive side, is selfish. And, it's that line, when you are silent, you are choosing the side of the oppressor. So I think it's very cheeky that they didn't address that, and it was more kind of like, well, she's always been this shadow supporter and now she's coming out to show her support publicly. And then on top of that, obviously, she talks a lot about women's rights and LGBT rights, but obviously that whole diabolical on Twitter about the whole hashtag Black Lives Matter, and Taylor Swift just totally ignored it and started talking about herself and how she thought that she was being attacked. She didn't address that, and I feel like a lot of these kind of white liberal celebrities, in terms of throwing their support at a marginalised group, the go-to is the LGBT community. And it just kind of seems to me like it is, well, we supported one marginalised group, we've done our work here. Again, for me, she's coming from a very safe place. Coming from, a Republican country, Christian environment, supporting the LGBT community is already divisive. But then her supporting the LGBT community as well as the African American community and police brutality and inequality. In my opinion, it is quite rare to see white liberal celebrities support both a marginalised group. It's usually one or the other. But that's just my analysis of it all. What do you guys think? Do you feel like Taylor Swift, is doing a good thing, but she definitely should have addressed the whole Black Lives Matter thing? Or do you feel like we should just take what we're given? The documentary also kind of touches on criticisms of Taylor Swift. A lot of them have been very misogynistic. A lot of people have been saying, oh, she's skinny, she's annoying, she dates too many men, she's been ran through. And she kind of addresses that with the footage. Again, it's a thing where she addresses it with the footage, but she never really actually makes a statement and says, you guys are being too harsh. I feel like she obviously has addressed it a lot in her songs. I don't see the problem with her having so many boyfriends. Like, life is too short. I don't see the problem in exploring all of these different options while you still can. Ending it, but also throughout, Taylor says she's nearing 30. She's nowhere near having kids. People around her are having kids. And she's just kind of focusing on her career right now. But as she nears 30, she kind of alludes to the fact that she's not really sure how much longer she's going to be allowed to be successful for, because obviously in terms of the industry, typically they would only be able to last till a certain age. I think that is definitely changing now, i.e. look at Nicki Minaj, look at Beyonce. They are, nearer to 40 than 30, and they're still doing bits, and they will probably continue to have a career for as long as they want, because the fans will always be there. But I feel like that's what she was kind of alluding to, that she feels like her time could be running out. If she really wanted to continue going, she would still have that fan base even at 40, even at 50, if she really wanted to continue going. But what do you guys think? Do you feel like Taylor Swift's time could be up soon, or she could continue to have a long career like Madonna or something? We also get, some insight into her creative process in terms of her music videos. And yeah, I'd love to be able to have the budget to just create anything that I wanted in my music video. And we also kind of get an insight into, another side of the fame is, the fans. The fans are, meeting her outside locations. They know where she is at all times. They're trying to break into her house. They're breaking into her house. They're sleeping into her bed. They're crying when they meet her for the first time. And this whole it kind of touches lightly on fan culture. I always find it weird. I feel like, I've encountered loads of famous people, and I feel like sometimes you do get emotions, like you get a bit shy, or you get like, you know, really like your heart starts beating. But yeah, I don't think I'd ever get to the level where I'm stalking a celebrity outside their house. I feel like going to a celebrity's house is disrespectful. Fair enough, you know, maybe trying to meet them, trying to get a picture of them outside their event. Ruining, you know, thinking that you are privacy laws because you stream their music every day. I think it is just very rude, very strange, and very entitled. And I feel like if I was to ever be famous, like, if you ever tried that with me, I don't care how much money you've put in my bank account, I'm calling the police. She was talking about her career when she basically reached her initial career goals, which was 2 album Grammys. She said that besides her mum, she didn't have anyone to kind of really celebrate with, which was tea, because obviously Selena and Taylor were really close. I don't think they're close anymore. Obviously, she wasn't involved in the documentary, so I'm guessing they weren't. But Taylor Swift and Selena Gomez were really close. So that was quite interesting. That's some tea, maybe. But yeah, that is pretty much the rundown of what the contents in the documentary. I feel like one of the big things in this documentary, especially when it is, you know, a day in the life-ish, very heavily centered about Taylor Swift, like the documentary is about Taylor Swift, is the authenticity. How authentic was Taylor Swift in this documentary? I'd have to say the authenticity was probably about 30 to 40%. I feel like a lot of it felt quite staged. A lot of it kind of felt like we're putting the camera here and we're going to be in the studio songwriting. That's what we're going to be doing for this scene rather than this documentary. I feel like we did see some authentic bits, but most of it was very staged. Taylor was very self-aware for most of it, and it's very clear that Taylor Swift was heavily involved in this documentary. I suspect that she watched all of the footage, and I suspect that she was in the cutting room with Lana Wilson and was like, this is the cut that I want. And Lana Wilson was happy to oblige because she's got this credit on, you know, a celebrity film. This is just my theory. This isn't like, you know, 100% fact. I went to film school. We did a documentary unit. And for me, this screams to me that Taylor Swift would not sign. And how it usually works is, you know, you do whatever you want. They sign a release without looking at the footage. And then you can edit it as you want. But it screams to me that Taylor Swift did not sign the release for this documentary until she agreed with every frame in the documentary. This is what this documentary kind of screams to me, to be honest. I feel like Taylor Swift was probably was the true director of this, and she just gave somebody else a credit. And she gave somebody else a free director credit. That's what this kind of documentary screams to me. I feel like the most authentic parts of the documentary was when she was in the car. All of the car journeys, I feel like that was when she was being her most authentic self. And also the archive footage. I feel like that was when we were seeing the real Taylor. And yeah, like I said, the car footage, I feel like that was when we were seeing... That is when she seemed like her most authentic self. It didn't feel like, okay, camera's here, these are the topics we are going to address right now. And I feel like, you know, stuff with like the eating disorder that was relayed in the car, a personal issue, an issue that was close to her heart, the sexual assault case, you could see how personal that was to her talking about it. You can kind of sense that, you know, her talking about it was just making her relive the case in her head again. So I feel like, again, that was another authentic part. And I kind of feel like the part when she said that, you know, she had to be truthful about her political views was also quite authentic. I was a bit thrown off by the tears, but when the country accent came out, that's when I knew, okay, she's being serious about this. She actually believes in this. Obviously, she kind of has a more kind of relaxed accent now, more kind of LA-ish rather than Southern. But, you know, every now and again, the southern accent comes out. So in terms of my overall rating and thoughts rounded up, I felt like it was an okay documentary. I feel like it was more of a promotion. I feel like it was more of a promo than a documentary. I feel like it was a lot of, image control, image revival, a lot going on. Obviously, a big elephant in the room. There was none of her old music in it, and she didn't mention the case with who is it? Scooter Braun. She didn't mention that. Obviously, that would have been interesting to see. And I feel like, obviously, it's not her fault. Obviously, she's got to deal with that situation. But, yeah, it felt like something was missing without the, earlier Taylor Swift music. The, You Belong With Me, all of that stuff. The music that made us fall in love with Taylor Swift. It's such a shame that it wasn't included in the documentary. Obviously they've got a lot of like iPhone footage in there, or phone footage, and mixed it up with, the documentary camera, and then mixed it up with the live performance footage. I feel like I would have preferred less of the phone footage. I feel like it was staged anyway, so you might as well have gotten the documentary camera in to capture that. I like the inclusion of her cats. The cat was really cute. If I was to get a cat, I feel like I'd get a cat that looked like Taylor Swift's cat. But yeah, I would have preferred to see more of an authentic documentary, a bit more of fly on the wall, a bit more of Taylor Swift forgetting that the camera is there. Fans of Taylor Swift will probably prefer it more, to be honest. I think this is something for her fans. The score could have been a bit better, I think. It was quite simple. You did hear some sad music, sad score here and there. But I always say, if you are a music artist and you have access to all of these producers, I expect more from the score, to be honest. I don't think it's going to win any documentary awards. I think overall, it's only an hour and 20 minutes, so it's not too long. But I'd say if you're not a Taylor Swift fan, you probably won't like it. I'm not sure whether it would be worth your time to watch it. I don't think it was a bad documentary. I think it was okay. So I'm going to give it a 2.5 out of 5. But yeah, let me know what you thought of the documentary. Let me know what you thought of this review. Do you think that we were seeing the real Taylor Swift, or do you feel like parts of it came up as inauthentic? Let me know. Subscribe if you haven't yet, and if you have, don't forget to press the notification bell so you'll know when the next review is dropping. Until next time, guys, bye.